Hey everyone, I'm Freddy Mahhumane, founder and CEO of KCD. And today we're doing Thinking Out Loud. So Thinking Out Loud is a podcast that will allow you to think on the spot. And today I have Bulelani to help me think on that spot. Bulelani, welcome, my brother.
No, man, thank you so much for having me on the platform and well done.
Thank you very much. So Bulelani, look, I know you were born in Tembisa, right? But I want you to just take it back for me. Where does everything start? Who's Bulelani behind T, basically?
No, man, Bulelani is a Mkansa, born kid. So
Yeah.
born and bred in Tembisa. So Mkansa is a section of Tembisa. Grew up opposite a soccer field.
Yeah.
Lived with my granddad, my grandmother.
Ah.
Five of their kids and almost 8 of my cousins in the same household. So the traditional township story, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the floor was my bed.
Yeah.
We shared tea bags. You ate the crust, which is the butt end of the bread. That was my
Yeah.
favorite piece of the bread.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it very, very much. But the only challenge and why I mentioned the soccer field is Bangawaz Udlalitis. I couldn't play soccer. All my cousins were skilled.
Yeah.
And, almost then feel alienated, so I have to find other. So from that point in my life, I didn't know that it was odd, but there were these odd things about me that stuck out, where it didn't fall into the norm in terms of things.
Yeah.
Obviously went into the local primary schools. Later on was taken to Olifantsfontein Primary School, then went to Elite College for my grades, I think grade 8, which is standard 6. Then standard 7 was taken to Mosesval Christian High, the boarding school, because they told me I'm problematic. I don't know, it's allegations. It has not been proven yet. Then I did my grade 9, and then I guess at that point during that year, my mother was being retrenched. So I guess the logical thinking was, do you continue the high school at a local school like us? Or do we take you to an FET college, because the minimum entrance was grade 9, so that at least you get a trade.
Yes.
So we did that.
Artisan skilling.
So we did that. Went to Bulelani West College, Kempton Park. Did the introductory course, which was the NCOR. Did N1, N2. Then the money ran dry. So now I'm leaving high school, sad because I don't have a matric dance, going into, but in this FET, now you have to be formal. So I'm in the train every day with other kids my age. Some of them are friends, they've got uniform. Now you're craving that thing. So that's another milestone in my life where now you're odd again. And you don't get to be a normal kid, in my view, again, and experience those things. You have to grow up very quickly.
Yes.
Man. So I love... And then over the years, I love Township, but then over the years, then sat home, did nothing for about 2 years from that AWC days, because the money ran dry. And then I guess the seed of entrepreneurship was planted. But just generally, I'm a kid who grew up in the Township, loved the Township, then hated the fact that I grew from there from scarcity because there were other opulent things, then fell and grew back in love with it because I saw it as a place of opportunity.
I see. But tell me, just if we can still take it back a little bit, right? What are some of the lessons that you think your grandparents taught you without really saying, listen, I'm teaching you this lesson? Now, when you look back, what do you think are key lessons that you can share with us?
So, man, my granddad, my experience with my grandmother was was limited because she then passed on while I was very young, but a very phenomenal lady. But my granddad was very tough, and there's a couple of things I learned from him. Because I was the youngest at the time of my cousins who lived in that household, I then could almost see his favor to me and almost his strictness to the older ones, but also a stickler for detail and perfection. So you are going to wake up at 5 a.m. to clean. So, the stoop outside was polished very early in the morning. There were no crumbs or spots you could eat off it. With that level of meticulousness, we had just an open ground that had no grass or nothing. But you sweep it, you clean it, you pour water on it. It looks meticulous and it looks like it's paved when it's not. Because of the fact that you loved yourself. So in that, I learned that just because you're physical or material situation or conditioning says everything outward, it says that you haven't arrived, you don't have the money, you're poor, but do not act like it because you are proud. So it was also a sense of pride that one needed to have. So if you love yourself, how do you show up with the least that you have? So if I only have one pair of jeans, I'm going to make sure that I wash them every day before I go out because I present myself well. I'm going to make sure that I wake up early because I love myself well enough to say, even though there are limitations, I'm going to take care of this household. But I think for me, a couple of the other key lessons that I learned indirectly in just being in the household or just being a kid who grew up in the township, it's just really the concepts of your circular economy or being sparing. So I knew very early that that 5 rows tea bag, you don't pour milk before the 7th or 8th person has drank, because that one tea bag needs to run the mile. So you need to share it. You know, even a loaf of bread, you don't go for the 4 slices, so you had an option to get the 3 slices or just get the 1 slice of the crust. Now you become optimized in how you eat, because the butt end of the bread is where you get filled up as opposed to the cushion parts. So you eat that whole thing. So when I later went to Olifantsfontein Primary School, I could never understand how these kids are having sandwiches and it's the inner part of the bread. I thought these kids are crazy. And quite interestingly, you know, I had an experience. So obviously, because there's a traditional South African township story of being poor. So my mother, we couldn't afford a number of things, but what she would do creatively, and I think that's what I learned from your creativity, is she would then cook it up. I guess in Xhosa it's called ukubonda, you know, where you cook it up and then let it simmer over the night. So it cools down. And then I guess in the morning, I'd take my lunch tin, and inside there were beans, cool beans. And then there was pap, but she sliced it up as over slices of bread. So being in a school or in a place where other kids were either living well or they were well taken care of, now you feel you're shamed, you feel like you don't belong. So I'd always eat my lunch behind the media center. There was one particular day where, I don't know, this group of kids, they were in my class, they were friends, they saw me, they came, they followed. I tried to grab my lunch tin and hide it. They grabbed it, they opened. I thought they would laugh. They started celebrating and eating the pap and beans because the one exclaimed that their mother doesn't make them pap and beans. So they traded that. Right? So they traded that for sandwich and ham. I was like, that's a fair trade any day. So from that then, and even in those experiences, I'm not embracing it, right? I'm just seeing it as a clean break. At least I don't get bullied. At least I don't get laughed at now. But still, you're living this life conflated in the fact that you are wearing, instead of wearing Tafis and Pakenya shoes to school, you are wearing Amategi, but the rip-offs. So you know when you're a young kid and you're wearing knockoff brands, you're going to get ostracized. But to finding that there are these odd things that put you in a position where you stand out like a sore thumb. But you then later on, only in life, you later on learn the meaning of some of these things that we call scarcity, that could have driven one to depression or frustration or whatever other things that look like damnation, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, when you're talking, I'm just trying to picture everything, right? It must have been challenging for you, of course. But how was it for your siblings? I mean, what kind of an impact did it have? I mean, I would assume here that not all of them had a very strong mindset and to survive. And I know this because I grew up in the township as well. But how did it impact them?
You know, quite interesting, right? The concept of same kids raised in the same household, but by the same humans, but different parents. Why? Because we experience them differently in the different life cycles. Never understood it then, but I understand it now. So my mother's experience of my older brother, and we are just the 2 kids with her, right? So my mother's experience with my older brother is that she had just gotten into a nursing job. Then she was young and she had the money. She bought him the Cavellas, you know, that I coveted so much. You know, the brown leather bags to school. Oh, he was a stylish kid, you know, well spoiled. And when it was my turn, she'd now being retrenched. Now all those things aren't there. Now I'm forced to sort of learn resilience. But similar to other cousins and other friends in the neighborhood, we almost all are thrown into the same pot. And it's almost a sink or swim, or complain about it or do nothing about it. And there were some who chose to do something about it. And that's usually in the very minute fraction. And then there are others who did nothing about it. And I think that then becomes almost the story of life. You know, where individuals complain about it or do nothing about it. But the mental resilience now becomes a very tough thing, because some of the early stage things I had to practice without talking about the entrepreneurial journey, just from a mindset perspective, is to open up my internet cafe every single day in the morning and exclaim to myself that people are coming in from the north, the south, the east, and the west. They are walking in, they are cycling in, and then you spend the rest of the day flagging people that are asking for directions. Then you only have 2 customers a day or 1. They're making they're buying empty CDs, they're making
I remember those
photocopies.
times,
No one actually comes in to actually do anything of meaning, and you're navigating as you move along.
All right. And then when you look back, right, I assume that time was run up at maybe you 10 or 15 or whatever. What do you say today? How do you advise that young person today who's probably going through similar experiences in the township?
Man, Yazi, I think the biggest advice I'd give myself then, and never change the course of the journey and what I learned, but is really just believe in yourself more. And the second thing I definitely tell myself is you definitely are the person that you think that you are. Why? Because, and you see that psychology even in early stages, even when you price. You don't feel like you belong. You don't feel like you are, you've got market potential. And because of that, you are timid or intimidated by the market. So when you sit across a client who you think can actually play, sometimes you know they can actually afford the 2,000 and rate. You psych yourself that is 2,000. When you get to their gate, it's now 1,000 Rand. When you see them, you blurt out, oh no, so it's actually going to cost 600. And they on the spot say, yes, sure. But you know they could have paid more because your psychology with who you are and you thinking that you've actually arrived is totally different. So there's a lot of psychosomatic and psychological and mental work that one individual needed to do. And I think I should have believed in myself a whole lot more. And then I think another part really, what I would have done is really just to invest in myself more, because you must remember, we start businesses according to the level of our education, our exposure, and the circles and the networks that we're in. So it makes sense why I started an internet cafe, because the options that I had, that I remember at the time, is either owning a taxi and the barriers were high because I couldn't afford it, or running a spaza shop, or a tavern, or a shabin, or a hair salon, or a car wash. And then I opted for an internet cafe because that area that I now grew up in, there were 5 internet cafes within that radius. And then I love the whole concept of computers and all that stuff. So that for me are the 2 things I would have done. I would have invested more in terms of trying to expose myself and learning more at a younger stage. And then I would have really backed myself up in making sure that I really believe in your stuff. Because in reality, even the clients I sit with, and some of my clients are billionaires, some of them are billionaire founders. You know what the interesting thing about that is? The guy who's standing on the side of the road with his pack of cool times and the CEO of a large corporate and the billionaire are doing one singular thing, one consistent thing all of them are doing every day, is all of them are putting feelers out to feel out what they're going to work out in the day. And the biggest reminder of that was COVID. Now, at the height of COVID, where everyone could hire the most experienced consultants, no consultant could tell them what's going to come out next. So that then become an equalizer for the individual who was selling stuff on the side of the road and the higher CEO and billionaire founder. All of them equally had nothing. And the person who had the agility is the person who would, the guys who had the agility to walk around township saying, take it or leave it, selling products and merchandise. Why? Because they were enterprising. So at that moment in time, they were the Casanovas of the Forbes list without being recognized before things resetted back to that. So for me, that was a deep reminder to say, in actual fact, all of us are navigating our way along. And because all of us are navigating our way along, we must believe and back yourself.
True, sure. That's profound. And look, there is this notion that successful, or you mentioned billionaires and millionaires and all of that, they actually don't have university education or corridor education, right? What do you say to that young person in the township to motivate them? Because education is very important, right? But it so happened that most of the examples of life are people that have dropped out of school. They never really followed the educational path. I mean, I'm talking from the days of Einstein to your Mark Zuckerberg today. What do you say to that child to say, listen, education is actually important?
I mean, I've never had a formal job in my life, right? I can tell you now, it sounds glorious, but it's the hardest thing you can ever do, because you must remember, when you started from the ground up, you don't have any sense of governance or exposure. You don't have any sense of practical corporate hierarchical exposure on how the corporate grid operates. You operate in a siloed mindset that says you must do everything. And anytime you bring in a team member to help with rendering tasks, you can't delegate to them, but you're still frustrated at the fact that they don't do work. Whereas when you're in a corporate environment, I could almost see people put up clear boundaries of this is not my role, but I am going to assist, but I'm aware of what I need to do. So when you build stuff from the ground out, sometimes you don't have that sense of differentiation, which then why the education becomes important. So I hustle as a start, I'm resilient in my hustle as a start, I push through the barriers, but it's going to be the knowledge that you impart yourself with, the team members that you bring in, and how you consistently disrupt yourself from a learning perspective that will help you move yourself to the next level. So then education for the young ladies and the guys in the township, to the experienced one, to the older ones, becomes important, because you can't grow at scale if you don't know what growing at scale looks like. So you then remain in a pond.
Yeah.
You know, there's this one thing I was saying to someone the other day, that it's quite interesting that you can still meet an individual who makes 50 million rand a year, but they're still a hustler. They're a hustler because they don't have systems and processes. You know, because you must remember that the journey towards acquiring money is not solely predicated on the right integrity values and value guides and system. I could bribe people to get money. I could steal to get money. I could shoot people to get money. I could lie to get money. I've got a connection wherever to get money. So whenever we take those people and we put them on a pedestal without understanding that true success actually leaves footprints, then we have missed the true guide. So I always say to guys, if you want to find out who to actually get advice from and to follow, you don't even need to, you'll be able to find out and map out their journey through their story. There will be someone who will be able to tell you that Freddy started here in this small corner with a tin of Coke, and he is where he is now, and these are some of the places where he went. Why? Because true success leaves breadcrumbs and footprints.
Interesting. All right, let's talk more now on, you mentioned you starting a business and an internet cafe. I assume this was your first business.
No, it was my third,
Your
right?
third business, yeah?
My first business was, I guess, about 2 years of my journey was informal. So I was doing odd things like selling sweets, selling magwenya. Actually, I'm very good at making a magwenya. Now you can't compete with me in that department. So I tried to do that. That was the formal years. And then I plant this crazy seed in my friend's brains, because I'd seen a friend of mine coming back from school. He was in grade 11, came back home with a T-shirt. But the T-shirt had his name on it. So you can imagine in 2005, in the township, a kid has their name printed on a T-shirt. That's crazy, right? Because I had never seen anything like that anywhere before. Now, because you must remember the dynamic, they're in high school, I'm not. So now they living out that life vicariously, and I'm not. So out of seeing and experience that, then it plants a seed, man. I actually would love to go into the printing space, or even resell this to a lot of guys, because the township is compounded with individuals that love soccer. So they would have 4, 5, or 8 jerseys of the same team because they love their team. And I thought to myself, imagine if you could find the person who made it for him, broker a deal to bring in a batch of T-shirts, maybe 1 or 2, and then they would print their names, and then I'd bring them back and supply that individual. So I then lobbied him. He introduced me to his classmate who lived in Limbro Park. And there was a printing shop up the road where he did the things. He would then be my broker. Then I did that oddly in early 2005. Then going into the late 2005, I planted the seed in my friends' ears, who are now in matric. And I think around October and September, they were announced that there'd be prefects, that I could actually make matric jackets for you. As a joke. They then took it seriously. In January, in 2006, they pitched it to the then deputy principal of Rosefield High School, Mrs. Ras. Very tough lady, but very sharp, very astute, very intelligent. They pitched it to her, and she said, call him in for a meeting. At that point in 2006, there was not even a registered business, if I'm remembering correctly. There was not even a bank account. There was none of that stuff. I didn't even know that you needed any of that stuff. I go into that meeting sharp and confident. And I remember because the previous year, I was accompanying my cousin to a matric dance in Tabileng. So because I was a partner, my aunt had bought me my first suit. So now I've got this black suit, I've got a pink shirt, I've got these sharp nose pointy shoes, because then they were a thing, to wear my kicken boboza, as we would call it, right? So now I've got these, and my brother had Motorola. a Motorola cell phone, the V3s. So I borrowed a leather cover. So I'm going to the school. I've got a relay laptop bag with no laptop. I've got a brick in the center. I've weighed it out on the side with sand so that it doesn't deform. I've got this belt I borrowed from him, but I've got a Motorola 3V3. Because back in the day, to show that you're a real businessman, the phone is on the side, hanging
Fake
on
it
the
till
belt.
you make it.
But there's no phone inside.
Yeah.
I walk from there in Hospital View, because we had moved from Mkansa to Hospital View. I walk from Hospital View to a Okma station. From Okma station, I get on a train. The train drops me off at Kempton Park station. Kempton Park, I walk to Rhodesfield. I get to Rhodesfield High School. I'm faced with two gates, a pedestrian gate, a vehicle gate. I ring the buzzer in the center. They open the vehicle gate. I walk in. A very lovely old lady, answers the call. She opens the gate and she asks, "Won't you park your car inside?" I then say to her, "My driver just dropped me off." Back of my head, I don't have a driver's license. I don't have a driver. Just had to, it was like, when he comes back, I'll tell him to park inside. Go in, and this lady says to me, I was told about you. Tell me a bit about your business. Then I tell her, no, we've got factories in Durban and Cape Town. We can manufacture these things. I had never seen Durban or Cape Town because I'm taking this from this young guy who's in Matric, who got this from his supplier in Limbro Park. That they could do these things, but none of us had actually done these things, and I later found out. That was the first meeting. Then she says, "Where can I call you for your office number?" Then I remembered the Namani family. My back opposite neighbors had a landline, 011-924-9494. 2424, sorry. So that would then be the number that I give to them. Then Nabastel, I would ask them to please, when they call, pretend you're the reception or whatever. I thought they'd never call. 2 weeks later, they called for the second meeting. But when they call, she says, "Could you please bring samples?" Now I asked this guy, I'm like, sure. I asked this guy to please ask your friend at school, does he have samples? He doesn't. Now I'm stressed. The meeting's in 2 weeks, there are no samples. So then I think to myself, in the true spirit of having guts and chutzpah, I mean, at this point, if I fail, I fail, and I'm going to fail forward. So I start to sketch out designs of jackets on a book with a pencil, no color. I go to the school. When I go to the school, I'm panicking. They receive me well. But when they receive me, the tune is different. We don't go into the deputy principal's office. We go into what seems like an almost assembly, or kids assembled out. I'm on a platform. She now says, "Show us the samples." I pull out this book. She's like, "Where are the samples?" And I don't have. I open the first page. They go crazy. I open the second page. They yell. The third page, they yell. Then they say, "We want that one." Now she's standing there, she's thinking these kids are mad, or he's mad, or this is a scam. I don't know what's going on. Now I'm thinking, I don't know why they're celebrating, but she says, "Show me that image." Now we leave them, we go to the office. She says, "Show me that image." I show her. I don't know what they see. I don't know what they saw. But anyway, I don't think we'll work with you because we worked with other guys in the past and you don't even have samples and they've got samples. So we'll think about it, but it's not promising. Then 2 weeks later, now this is all happening in January. And now 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, the third meeting, which is now 2 weeks later from the initial sample presentation, I'm called in, which is first week of Feb. She says, "Okay, against my own will, they voted for you. We're going to get the 378 matric jackets from you." My then second biggest deal, which was my largest deal, then becomes to supply these matric jackets, and the deal was 15,720. I then get them to this guy who then supplies these guys in Limbro. The Limbro guys now hustle to find someone. They found someone in Cape Town to make them. It takes us now 7 weeks or 8 weeks to deliver. We deliver, the order's 2 weeks late. She's not happy about that, but she's happy that we actually deliver. I make my first for 800 rand. Take my 500, give it to your old lady, my mother, keep the 300. Now then I sit there and think, man, I've supplied these things between February all the way into April, right? Now, what am I going to do? Because matric jackets are seasonal business. And it also turns out that it never, ever even became a thing. I guess it was the luck of the draw because my friends were in high school at the time and could advocate. Then I sit through that year, and I guess I then formulate the idea of opening an internet cafe. But now the biggest problem is you don't have money. So on the 7th of September, we opened this internet cafe. My brother got me an HP 610 inkjet printer from his workplace. The tiled carpets I got from the local church, including 10 plastic chairs. The tabletops I got from the very back opposite neighbors that were demolishing the house. So we used the wardrobe doors were tabletops. The crates I got from the local store. with 2 bricks to then balance it up and give it weight. As a good friend of mine gave me 200 rand to go buy material fabric to use as cloth,
Yes.
to cover up all that mess under there. I also then was given a Pentium 1 computer and 5 tube screens to pretend as if there's more computers than you think.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, on the 7th of September, I opened up the shop. And then about 20 years ago, opened up this internet cafe. No, nothing internet cafe about it. We didn't have internet or nothing cafe about it. The first day we made 5 rand. So for the first 7 years, I'm making anywhere between 180 to about 380 rand a month on a deficit. It took the biggest telecoms provider in the country 2 years in 24 months, in actual fact, to build in an ADSL exchange at the time, because they had said we were the first to apply for it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it took them time, and all we could do is just type CVs and photocopy and do odd things.
No internet.
And even that was tough.
Yes.
Because I couldn't even photocopy, so you're learning as you move along while
Yeah.
making errors, while making errors at the same time. So, and how I know this is because I kept a ledger, and those books I still keep them to today.
Mm-hmm.
I kept a ledger of how much we are making, what we are buying, what we are left with,
Yes.
as a supplier, as a supply book. So that, and then also what I then did is then I started to optimize a CV process where I knew that the same people started to come back over and over again. And every time they came back, you needed to retype from scratch. So for speed, I'd save their CVs and I'd keep them on a CD. And that CD I still have as about over 20,000 CVs that I typed before my first employee. And my first employee was 9 years into that hustling journey. And in between that, I'm doing, in between that, I open the internet cafe at 7 a.m. in the morning. I close at 7 p.m. in the evening. I then hustle 1,500 rand. I get a vehicle license for the taxi association to transport school kids. It was 1,500. A friend of mine's granddad had passed on, left him a kumbi. Now here we are, we're transporting school kids. So I wake up at 4 a.m. I drive. He does the afternoon shift.
Yeah.
I come back. I run the internet cafe. In between that, lunchtime, I'm selling food packs and enterprise pack at the end of the month to the ladies in the streets, who the moms of the friends and around,
Yeah.
and I collect it the next month. And then for the first 3 months of the year, I'm selling stationery packs, and I'm just literally just hustling and doing odd things in between, growing this business or finding what this thing is.
Yes. So, thank you for that. I mean, very detailed. What I'm thinking about right now is, when does it bite you? When do you get that bite that says, listen, I am building here for this township, but actually this could be something that other people can use, or I'm actually trying to build something bigger. When does that happen? And what I'm trying to ask here is maybe the birth of tea here.
No. So, it's 2 things, really.
Yeah.
It's the fact that at the 7th year, of the May of the 7th year, I told myself I'm giving up, I'm done with this, this is nonsense. Because it's not working, it's insanity.
Yeah.
There's nothing business model about that. For 7 years, you're making losses, you're still waking up every single day. It was insanity.
Yeah.
So I then finally decided, because there's also pressure from home. My mother's a single mother, she's doing odd jobs, I'm not helping at all. This thing doesn't seem like it's moving. She's the only one pulling all this weight by herself. So I then decide in May that, okay, June is going to be my last month. But in June, in the month of May as well, what I also then do is that I come up with this CV thing template. So it would make it easier to type CVs. It's got a pattern behind it. The font is cleaner, so it's easier for people to read. So I then pick up that this is what will be number 1, our template, but we make it different from everybody else. Because then I started to ask myself, but why do people come to this internet cafe? Right? You could have gone anywhere else. Why do you come here? Then I thought, but if everyone gets the same old document they could get anywhere else, then there's nothing that differentiates.
True.
So now we
Yeah.
created this template that you get from Clipboard, Microsoft Clipboard. Then we put it at the back, we grayscaled it, we lowered the opacity of it, we put it at the back, so it gave it a different, people loved
Nice
it.
look and feel.
So now, quite interesting is that we did it for optimization, but the more and more we did it, people would come back and say, actually, I got the job, and you couldn't believe the whole interview was about how beautiful the CV is, and they gave me the job because of that. So now, the more and more we did that, we had clients coming in. Now the June now didn't seem like we were going to close. In actual fact, we had made the most money that year, June, when I decided I'm closing this whole thing down. And that changed the trajectory of the business entirely. So the furthest person who had actually come all the way to Tembisa to type a CV came from Rustenburg. because he heard that we type the type of CVs that enable people to get jobs. Then I was like, had I known, had the digital age hit me, I probably would have been a billionaire. Just I cared about myself. But it was that, right? And then ever since that point, I started to now think bigger, really drive towards, can I get incubated? Can I learn? What is out there? Being deeply curious about the mark. And then the more and more we did that and we grew the business, now from Internet Cafe, hired my first employee, which was Maxwell, a phenomenal gentleman. Then was Ndombi. And then from there, we now were incubated at the time, which then helped to build in systems and processes and expose me to other entrepreneurs that were seasoned. It then hits me that the more and more I do that and I share my story, people want to hear the story, people love the story. And out of that then grew this need to want to bring along other individuals from my local community. Which is now in 2015, we then started this initiative called T. At the time when we started it, in 2015, on the 15th of March 2015, was to do two things. Get 10 or 5 guys who are curious about business in one space with the purposes of sharing information and getting to know each other with the hope that they'll do business with each other. That was the only thing. So we started doing that. So we did that. First day, it wasn't 20, it was 160 people that came. Then out of that, all we did was just that for the first few years. And then, but because of the insatiable hunger and desire in a human being, I guess when you're an entrepreneur to want to solve problems, every time we thought we can't keep doing same things the same way, it's insanity. So we started to add layers of things. So there's research now, there's insights, there's overviews, there's ESD, there's all these odd things up until now we get to a point where we've built this nationwide footprint initiative that has directly impacted over 100,000 township entrepreneurs to now selling that initial business that did the print, because it graduated from print branding and then manufacturing, now selling it about 3.5 years ago to now wholly focusing on now fully commercializing tea as a specialist township agency in the country, providing research, insights, enterprise development to special project implementation. But the beautiful thing about that is I did all these things I didn't want to do up until you get to a point where I never even knew such a thing as the business I'm running existed. But now you're building a business out of a problem that you are seeing and making the public aware of. And it turns out it's actually something that you love, that you're passionate about.
Sure. It's a remarkable story. I follow T a lot, and I can see the change that you guys are doing there, the impact and all of that. For me, though, one thing about T, I mean, it's a big community. So leadership is one of the big things that must be proper. John C. Maxwell defined leadership as influence, right? What is leadership for you?
I mean, I think for me, my singular view on what leadership actually is it's serving. It's service. You need to be of service to others. Because I think when the moment you start to think of it as service, then my disposition to the teller is different. My disposition to the security guard that I would ordinarily discard out of my arrogance or my title and position is different. So if I take on service as the key driver or the key lead rather, it means that every single person who stands before me is someone I need to serve. So it equals out the individuals that are before you. And you would know as well as I do that from an entrepreneurship perspective, the individual who actually hold the key to opportunities in corporate spaces as the security guard, as the cleaner, the receptionist, the PA. These are individuals that in meetings you might even speak over, but they carry the execution agenda post-meeting to go actually go find the supplier and execute. And guess what? When you're able to maneuver those spaces, these are the people that you actually huddle with. So I think for me, it's servant leadership, because it's also servant leadership that keeps putting me in a position where the better part of me, the better arrogant part of me, because all of us as human beings have that, the better arrogant part of me that feels the need to say I'm self-made and did it by myself, is constantly humbled by the fact that I'm reminding myself I must serve. And because I must serve, I'm reminded that it's people that open up the doors for me. It's people who sign the checks. It's people who refer you. It's people who connect you. It's people who say, Freddy's the one that you must work with from Kasidi. It's people who send those emails to other corporates and CC you and say, try this guy out. Why? Because there's a deep affinity, but it doesn't come in the absence of that service. So service then builds out those archetypes and characters that sift into community, that sift into humility, that sift into kindness, that sift into doing business with you, because singularly, people only do business with people that they like.
I see. So tell me, I know there's this thing that people think township only exists in South Africa, right? But me and you would know that townships exist all over the world, right? Are there any plans to, because for me it's a community, right, of entrepreneurs. Are there any plans for you to grow either abroad or into Africa or outside of South Africa?
No, man. I'm very excited that you say that, because I think one of the things I say to my team is the fact that we will solve the township problems in Europe and in the US. In all the first world countries, because they've got a township problem. They don't call it townships. Some of them call them projects, some of them call them shanties, some of them call them other things. Because of the where we are, we understand the dynamic of how to go into these places with humility and respect and serve people with dignity and prop them up and not just throw food hampers at them. So at the back of that, we definitely have expansion plans. So I think our expansion plans are threefold. The first one is we've already gone to about 181 townships in the country. We've covered all 9 provinces and all major townships in South Africa. So part of our deep expansion problem in this extensive program in the country right now looks at, number 1, building a digital platform, and number 2, bringing infrastructural hubs. The second part in terms of our expansion is we are launching in Namibia as well as Botswana next year, March. So it's already finalized. We are launching with the idea that our plan for next year is to launch in Botswana as well as Namibia for the first quarter of the year. By the last quarter of the year, we would have already then covered Zambia as well as Swaziland. As part of our expansion plan and building communities there. Whilst the third key one for us then resonates deeply with what I'm saying now. It's working with all the global parties that are first world in understanding how Africa actually operates, and also then helping them to understand how they need to then solve problems for their own communities. So that's our 3-part plan over the next 5 years. We've just entered our first year, so over the next 4 years.
Interesting. So tell me, there's this young man who grows up in Tembisa. Poor background. Right? They hustle their way into what we would call success today. Now they're on TV, they're on 702, this morning they're on YFM and all of that. Now, dude, you're now a celebrity, right? Everybody knows your face, right? How does that, what kind of an impact has that had on the people that you are leading, number 1, and on your family?
You know what? For the first part to that answer talks to the early part of all of that. It was ego, because it felt good being in front. It always feels good in front of being in the camera, to be honest, because it's an ego thing. For me then, it was an ego thing. Then I needed a very good mentor of mine I didn't need him, but he called me in for dinner, served me this beautiful dinner. His wife cooked, didn't take me to a restaurant. His wife cooked, they served me this beautiful dinner, gave me the most beautiful cake. Back of my head, I'm thinking, hey, this is 5-star achievement. I wonder, I'm being celebrated here. Says 2-3 lines of good words. Then he says to me, don't be too arrogant. The most successful of entrepreneurs that we have worked with, that we have funded, were entrepreneurs like you, grew up in the township and did well, but then got blinded by the lights. Don't get blinded by being on TV. Don't get blinded by radio interviews. If it doesn't speak objectively to the growth of your business, it's a distraction. It is only serving ego as opposed to serving the bottom line. Focus on the business. In that moment in time, I'm at the height of all of this hoo-ha. He's telling me this and I'm thinking this guy is jealous. But he's got no reason to. Because it benefits nothing apart from me being successful. But then over time I learned that he actually has my best interest at heart. And I take a couple of steps back of a couple of things and I'll start to ask critical key questions. Does it impact my business? Is it in line with my sales directive? And if it is, we'll do it. If not, then we don't even, then there's nothing wrong with saying no to it because there's no alignment to it. And then deeply growing into that, now I learned that it's a deep responsibility. Because to be trusted with a platform like this amazing platform you've built, for me to share knowledge with people, it's not an on-camera responsibility. It's an off-camera responsibility because you're not just trusting me with you're not just trusting me with me sharing knowledge with you. You're trusting me with the KCD brand. Because tomorrow when I'm doing nonsense in the streets and I'm coming out on front pages for nonsense, they will not just say Bulelani messed up. They will also say Freddy from KCD who gave him a platform and an audience to thrive in his scams and nonsense. So
Yeah.
for me, whenever I come and I'm given these opportunities, I don't look at them as I'm doing you a favor because you called me.
Yes,
I look
yes.
at it as he respected his own brand so much,
Yeah.
and he's gambling on me so much. So you are actually betting on me
Yeah.
as I sit here. So the big responsibility for me that comes with it is the fact that offline, I need to also then maintain everything I talk about here,
Yeah.
so that I don't talk about things that are not my life.
Yeah,
That is why in
yeah.
my dress code and the way that I talk, I don't pretend. What I share now is how I live. I don't talk about I was in a township, but I'm not there.
Yeah.
You know, I can't tell you about sentences on spaces I'm in.
Yeah.
You understand me? Usually and ordinarily.
Yeah,
Can't tell you about fancy cars. You know, I don't have one.
Yeah.
I'll tell you only about the things that I have, because that way you find that it becomes easier to live the life that you have, because that is your lived experience and it becomes authentic on offline.
Yeah.
So there's a big responsibility.
Sure. Yeah. No, thank you. Look, I know, because I'm also a leader. I have my own mentors, right? People that would mentor me. And one of the people said to me, one of my mentors said to me, look, Freddy, as a leader, you need to be backable.
Yes.
Right? When you turn your back and you leave your team, you must have that sense that your team will back you.
Yeah.
That's number one. And you must know that anybody who picks up the phone and somebody says, tell me about Freddy, they should be able to back you up, and you become backable. And when you become backable, you become successful. For you, how have you built that backable, what would I say, characteristic, right? Both for your team, for your family member, and also making sure that, look, I picked up the phone and I said, listen, can you hook me up with Bulelani? I mean, this was 8 months, 9 months ago when we first met, or whatever it is. But that person said, he's a great guy. Here's the number. Call him and tell him I gave you the number. You know?
No, man. I think for me, I think in deep honesty, it was not in the early days. It was not the perfect team leader. It was tough because you're not making money. You're not briefing the people well. You don't have the knowledge, and you're frustrated.
Yeah.
So to a degree, you become very tough on people. You border on sometimes what is a toxic leader, because you're holding on to things, but holding people accountable on things that they don't know, and you're frustrated at month end. You're taking that out on people and stuff. But you know, to grow and to get into spaces where you introspect and hold yourself accountable was a beautiful thing. And now the resolute focus and view is, people are spending, the team members that I work with spend majority of their lives in our workspaces. They dedicate themselves traveling late hours and early mornings to these various communities and townships. And it's deep, inconvenient work that we do. I always say to people, doing work in the township is inconvenient. Because there's infrastructural issues, there's strikes and riots, there's someone who wants to pay a protection fee, there's someone who's going to burn your car because you're doing well, there's someone who's going to start a scam about not supporting you because Freddy now drives X and Y type of a car, there are all of these plots and plans that are sort of set up against you that don't want you to succeed. So you need to definitely want to be intentional about being in that space. That's why a lot of large corporates go in and they leave with their tail in between their legs, because you don't go in there because you have the money. You go in there because of respect and humility and passion and a lot of deep patience in wanting to be in that space. So what you actually say to yourself as a large corporate going into the space is, I am informal. That's the position you must take. I am informal as a large banking institution, and I want to be formalized around how the township actually works. The moment you take on that disposition, you go in there with a level of humility.
Yes.
So I think when I then started to then take these nuances that I'm learning in these communities and these townships, the actual learning was now shifted from what I'm giving these entrepreneurs as learning nuggets for them to actually, what do I bring into the office and my team? How do I use trust as a space? How do I use trust in the office so that they trust me more? And because they trust me more, they'll commit more. If I make the office environment a safe environment, maybe they'll work a little bit better, not longer, but a little bit better, and commit themselves more and be more creative. So now that this position changes from we pay you so much to we have partnered with you so much and we need you to bring so much to the table, but also mutually, what do you need to ensure that you are okay, and what are your dreams, and how do we help you as a business get to where you're going, because you're already spending a third of your life here with us. So building that team dynamic then becomes critical, because when I show up in front of people, show up as an individual, but there's a team of 40 or 60 people that are in the office and our satellite team members that are backing this amazing work, that are talking about us. But it starts really at the trenches and introspecting consistently. Is it mutually beneficial, or is it just benefiting you? And if it's just benefiting you, it's going to show the cracks are going to show over time.
True. Look, at Cassidy, so I had a team of, it's now over 100, right? And what we wanted to do, or what I wanted to do, was to make them connect and be a team. So I started this thing that everybody in the office must learn how to play chess, right? And it was interesting. So everybody started learning how to play chess. After that, we said, listen, you must choose a chess piece that talks to you or speaks to you. And people chose their kings, their knights, and all of that, right? And we said, look, we're all different, but we have the same goal, right? And our goal is to deliver.
Yes.
That's our why.
Yes.
Right? What's your why?
Man, I think my singular why really is to build meaningful connections between the township economy and corporate South Africa for future economic inclusion. That's my singular why, because if I can create the platforms and be the conduit that connects the individuals and the individual wins, then I'm happy. Which is what I've always said to the individuals, and some of them have gotten large deals from large multinationals. Some of them have just gotten 10,000. Some of them have just gotten R1. I always say to them, we are the 1% factor. I'm the 1% factor. I never take shine away from the individual who's grafted hard in their journey. We're the 1% factor. So if we can link you up with someone or share information or help you get funding that helps you scale your business, it's all you. We're just the 1% factor. Because I need the individual to know and not fall into the cycle of dependence, to understand that you still need to show up for the 99%. And just because we're that 1% factor, you need to go find the next 1% factor for your next level of growth, so that you wholly own your own individual journey and growth. That way you never operate with entitlement. Even when you know that government's job is solely to support you. A government department's mandate is, we will give you 50,000 rand if you've got these documents. Once you've applied and they don't show up, it's your job to follow up. So I always say to entrepreneurs, operate on a zero base. A zero base says, even if their mandate and their responsibility as economic development is to give me the money, is to give me the support and the training, and they don't do that, it's my job and my prerogative to camp outside their offices and make sure that they give me the opportunity. Then you operate on a zero base, then there is no entitlement that's built. And because now you understand that that zero base then puts you in a position where you build for you and you build rigorously.
Yeah. Look, you touched a bit on what I would call personal branding, or your own brand, right? And I'll speak to someone that that does branding very well. I mean, somebody from Tembisa as well, DJ Spoo.
Yes.
So actually, a funny thing, my first encounter of DJ Spoo, right? I went and bought a domain. This is years ago. I went and bought a domain, 1632.co.za, right? And one day I'm driving home, I receive a phone call, and I go, hello, and he says, hi, this is Spoo, like Spoo. He says, this is DJ Spoo. I'm like, DJ Spoo, and I connect the voice. I'm like, what? And then he says to me, look, it's Freddy, right? I'm like, yes, it's Freddy. And he says, look, you have a domain I want to buy, 1632. I'm like, serious? Like, yeah. Can you think about it? And then you will let me know. On the spot, I wanted to sell that domain because it was, I recognize the brand, right? And then he says to me, this is my number, you can call me back. I immediately, when I hung up, saved his number on my phone. Fast forward, well, the domain thing didn't happen or that, but when I was driving home, I was like, okay, now that means I'm running a business because I'm attracting these kinds of brands.
Yes.
What's the importance of building a personal brand as a leader in this space, especially in the township?
You know, quite interesting, because you mentioned someone I really, really love. Ikhotman, you know, my big brother. In actual fact, you know, I'll tell you something I think I've never shared. He's the one who created my Instagram page. Because we used to do road shows with the Sibusiso Leopa Education Foundation.
Yeah.
And so I was the guy who'd pick up staff banners, and finally I got a shot to speak to the kids.
Yeah.
And he loved it, so now I get an opportunity to always speak to the kids everywhere. And he'd always tag me on videos. And he's like, dude, people want to, I keep tagging you, but they say your link is not taggable. So we then sat one day and opened up the Facebook page and gave me tutorials on how to utilize Instagram. And then he said a couple
Lovely
of things.
guy.
He said,
Yeah.
listen, you must always understand something. There are people out there that need to be fed. There are people who create the content and people who consume the content. Because they want to be fed, feed them. Put the things that are out there. But now in this case, you're not putting out flamboyant things. Put out stuff around your business. So that now you build your own community and you make noise. The people that love the stuff will gravitate towards that content. Indirectly, little did I know that I'm getting a personal branding masterclass in that moment. I take that advice very seriously to now start to talk about the business. So even the slogan, get things done, is a slogan I got from a talk that he did around getting things done. Then I decided, I love this, and because I love this, I'm going to print a cap written get things done as a reminder to myself that I need to get things done. And then it ended up being a thing, and I've worn this cap for over 11 years, every single day of my life, at a wedding, a funeral, a party, a school, or whatever the case is, right? Because it was a staunch reminder to myself that I need to get things done. The days where I want to be complacent and lazy, this is a reminder that I said, and now I'm saying it publicly to everyone, and people will then irritate and say, Mr. Get Things Done, did you not say that you're going to deliver this thing? What are you doing now? Now you almost, now you are held accountable to, no guys, we have to do this thing. There's no way I can go against my brand promise. I'm the guy who delivers, and I'm optimization and I'm productivity. So then it becomes an important, because in essence, what is a brand? What is a brand? A brand is a promise made and a promise delivered. That's what you need. That's what a brand is. A brand is a promise made and it's a profit delivered. It's when you are consistently building the habit of delivering on the things that you said. So the word integrity comes from the Latin word integra, which means complete and whole. So when you build a brand, you need to understand that how you do one thing is how you do everything. You don't build a brand by replication or duplication. You build a brand by emulating your own personality at its own inception stages up until you bring the right comms team to help you then give it a voice and a look and a feel that they will then emulate. So which then why it then becomes very important for you to build those key things into your business. So my 4 key things in helping an individual build a solid brand is the 4 things, and then that lead to the 5. The first one is be clear on your vision, which in most cases is your why. The second thing that you need to then be clear in, what are your objectives? You sort of asked me, so what is the plan? What are our growth plans? Be clear of what your objectives, because the why keeps you motivated. The objectives is what you mechanically and operationally work towards as a business, as a team, each and every day, right? The third thing that you then need to then build into what your mission is. What is your mission statement that keeps the team going? And then the fourth thing that you then almost becomes an indirect effect of all of these things is the fourth thing that you then need to build and identify what your values are. Once you've identified what your values are, these 4 things merge together, give an indirect thing, that indirect feel that no one can touch and feel, called culture. So when I walk into a KCD, no one told me, I didn't read it anywhere, but when I come across anyone from KCD, whether they're wearing a logo or not, there's something about them. I don't know if you guys have told, no, man, there's something about the guys at KCD, man. I can't taste it. They didn't tell me, but all of them are smiling, or all of them are whatever. Because it's that indirect effect of the vision, the mission, the objectives, and the values that you put in place that now creates this culture that customers and consumers experience and they touch and they feel. So now suddenly, Freddy doesn't need to be in every single meeting. There are certain people you can delegate to certain non-critical meetings because there's a feel about that individual that they have adopted the culture. So that's how you now know that you built the brand. But once you now have built that culture, the 6th biggest thing that you then need to then do, apart from replicating it through your comms and digital channels and touch points, is you need to make a loud noise. Why? Because uniqueness has an expiry date. If someone enters the same industry as you and they make your story is unique, being raised by a grandmother and so on and so forth, and they make a louder noise than yours, unfortunately, you now carry the burden of trying to make a louder noise or building up a different story. So if you're an individual who's selling magazines, be so loud that people call you the magazine guy. Why? Because what are you doing? all of us are trying to then take up neurological real estate in people's brains. That is why today when I go visit my uncle, and I still say this, you know, he'd either say, please go buy me the orange Coca-Cola or the brown Coca-Cola or the white Coca-Cola, but is referring to Stony, Sprite and Fanta, because that brand has deeply lodged itself. So what are we then trying to do with Kasi D and a T and whatsoever the case is? We want to lodge ourselves in that neurological space so that there's a piece of real estate that we own where someone, when they experience something that feels like us, they can assimilate it to us and wanting to work with us. But that doesn't happen unless you make noise. So it means that what do you then do? You take the imposter syndrome, you throw it out the window, you take the nervousness, you throw it on the window, and you make the loudest noise. Why? Because remember one thing.
Yeah.
The business is small.
Yeah.
The founder is not small. The biggest psychosomatic impact of calling yourself a small business is the fact that you actually take it to heart. So when you're in rooms with CEOs of large organizations and managing executives of large organizations, you think of yourself as someone who's timid. You don't think about that relationship from a value perspective. When you think about it from a value perspective, it changes your demeanor and posture. Yes, I am Bulelani with an internet cafe with one bench and one computer in Tembisa, but because I've traveled with my mind and I've exposed myself to what is out there in the market and I understand the value chain, in this meeting today, I would like to propose that we'll help you with the national rollout. Why? Because the national rollout implementation is not predicated on the capacity or the lack of capacity that I have.
Yeah.
It emanates from the founder's capacity. So I can now sit with president and only have one bike, delivery bike. It is not a thing because that one delivery bike is not a measure of the founder. Yeah. So which is why I always say to the entrepreneur, the business is small, but the founder is not small. The small is a functional small, is a domicilium small, is a SaaS definition of small, is a statistic definition of small, not the founder's mentality and capacity. The founder's primary job is to scale their capacity and their level of thinking so that they expose themselves to new ideas, which is why in my firm view, you never outgrow, you never outsell a founder because he's constantly scaling, he's constantly business developing, he's constantly reshifting the narrative and positioning himself. And that's what we need to then endeavor towards.
Thank you very much, Bulelani. That was really profound. And this is why we have to think out loud. Thank you very much for joining us. Look, subscribe, like, share, and let's think out loud. I'm looking forward to your comments so you can think out loud with me. Thank you very much.